Okay. So this is welcome. Sorry, I'm going to start over again. Welcome to the online program by Levittown Public Library. We are conducting this over Zoom on August 3rd at approximately 6 p.m. This is Writing the College Essay. Today, we will be going over briefly some things to keep in mind at various stages of writing the essay for your college application. Is the blank page making you anxious? Why is the college essay part of the application so scary or daunting? There's a few reasons for this. You have total control, which means you actually have a lot of freedom, which to a lot of writers is scary. You want the guardrails. You want them to tell you exactly what to write, and you can fill in the blanks instead of craft a whole narrative. Another reason is you don't know how a reader is going to react to your essay or topic. And in this case, the reader, the college application counselor, is probably one of the more important readers that you're going to have in your life. Another and the last answer that is probably making you the most anxious is you are never going to have a right answer. It doesn't exist. There's no answer key for the college essay. It is totally up to you to come up with, craft, and submit something that is representative of you while also presenting you in the best light. In this presentation, we're going to go over quickly different stages of how to approach the essay. It's a process, which means that it's going to mirror this presentation, and you should approach your essay in 3 broad chunks. You're going to start with, before you start writing, before you do an outline, you're going to prepare, and you're going to circle it. You're going to circle a topic like a shark. The second step is actually writing and getting everything down on the page. This is very important. Usually the most feared part of it, and it's very different than the third section, which is revising, editing, polishing, and making sure it's as good as it can be before you do the final submit. And in this, with the timeline on all 3 sections, I'm glad you guys are here today because you're going to want to give yourself plenty of time at each stage. So the first section is how to start. So 2 big important questions when you're writing your college essay, any essay, but particularly for this essay. It's going to impact, the answers to these 2 questions are going to impact every writing decision that comes after it. Who is writing this essay? And who is reading the essay? The answer to the first question is, of course, you. The answer to the second question is some college admissions counselor somewhere. So when I say you want to answer these questions, I already just answered them for you. It means to go a little bit further than that. When you say who is writing the essay and the answer is you, which you are you presenting to this college admissions counselor? What do you want to say about yourself? And why do you want to say that particular thing about yourself? Which can feed into which college are you writing for? Are you writing for a general audience of college, any college that you're writing, applying to? Is it just one? Why are you taking this particular tack with the writing, and why are you aiming it towards this particular audience? And the last thing to keep in mind with who's reading it is that with the college admissions counselors, so many of them get the same essay over and over and over. They're getting thousands of applications. Not only do you want to present yourself in the best light, you want to break up their day so that they remember you. So how do we answer these questions while brainstorming a topic? For me personally, this is the hardest part. There's just so much pressure to answer both of those questions. Who's writing? Who are you writing for? And you have to find some topic that's going to be enough of a foundation so that you can answer both of those questions in the essay itself. So at the library, so we're going to go back for a second. At the library, we have a whole bunch of resources, a whole bunch of books and databases. I used a bunch of books. We're going to go over them at the end of the presentation to writing that are dedicated only to writing the college essay. And these next two exercises are going to come from two of those books. So we have first the essence objects exercise. So both this and the next exercise are best attempted when you don't have a topic, when you don't really know what it is that you're going to write about or why, or even, you know, if you want to write about any of these topics. So the first one is the essence objects exercise. We're taking that from a book called College Essay Essentials by Ethan Sawyer. And in it, you start with a blank piece of paper, and then you're going to just imagine a box. And in the box is a set of objects. In the book, he talks like 20 objects. You have to write down each object as it represents one of your fundamental qualities. So it can be, if I'm looking at my setup right here, right now, I have an essential object. I'm looking at my water bottle. I take it with me everywhere. It's a goal of mine to stay hydrated. I have my phone. Is that an essential object to me? To me, not really. I don't use it too much. I'm mostly on my laptop. To you, it might be. You can think about your favorite flannel that you just kind of curl up inside at the end of a long day. But the most important part is to remember that each object in your essence object box is an objective correlative for some important complex part of you. And all that means is that each item that you pick has to reflect some aspect of you back. So when you're doing this exercise, first you're going to list 1 to 20 essence objects. And then you're going to take the top half, or the ones that you identify most with, and you're going to write a little bit about each one and how they connect to you. And then you're going to take the top 5 or 3 or 5, and you're going to then use those that you feel most strongly about and use those potentially as a basis of an essay. So the second topic is from a book called Write Your Way In by Rachel Torr. And it's even simpler than the first one. It's 20 topics. So it doesn't have the framing device of the essence objects. It's just you looking at the prompt and writing 20 potential topics. You have to have 20 different topics total, no repeats. You're going to find that the first couple, pretty obvious. They're going to come to you pretty quickly, but around number 7, it's going to get a little bit harder. Around number 14, you're going to kind of look and be like, well, I don't have anything else to write about. And then you're going to get weird. And that is where the best essays are hiding, in the weird, kind of like you're scrambling your brain, thinking of something that can work for you. Again, you don't have to use the weird ones, but it is a good exercise to get your creative juices flowing, which is it's a phrase that I hate. So for choosing the topic, and we're spending a lot of time on this because it is the most important part to me, and it's also the hardest part. We're going to do what Rachel Torr says is called stay small and close. And what does that mean? It means it literally. Choose something small or innocuous or like physically close to yourself in order to say something big. You want to be personal so that you can then convey to the reader something universal. It's very hard. I'm not going to say that you're going to get it right at the first go of it, but that's kind of the ethos you want to go into writing this essay. You want to make it personal so that it relates on a universal level. The second tip is you don't need a tragedy. Everyone has a compelling story. Counselors, college application admissions counselors, they're not looking for someone to make them cry. They just want you to make them say wow, or to have them remember you. And a lot of the times sad things you remember because, you know, they're sad and they impact you emotionally, but you can evoke emotions with any situation that you come across. The next tip is to take little bites out of big issues. You might find yourself wanting to talk about Palestinian independence or COVID or the need for racial reparations in America. And you know what? Those are very important topics, but you only have, I think it's like 1,500 words. So you got to be very precise and deliberate and take small bites out of those big issues when you approach a topic. You can embrace cliches, but only as a starting point. The best essays, they never start with "my mom is my best friend because," or "I admire my grandparents so much because," or things like that. Cliches, they help you to start thinking. And when you think about your 20 topics exercise, that is generally going to be the first ones that you come up with are things like very obvious things about yourself. Start there, don't end there. You want to think about your core values, which is when you think about what is important to you, whether it's like honesty, vulnerability, tenacity, you want to take that value and then connect it to something small and close. So something tangible. So you want to think about how your honesty reflects in how you approach, I don't know, something like if you were 8 years old and you stole a candy bar and you still have like, I'm not going to say a rapper because that's gross. I'm something like that. You want to connect a value to something that you can then show. And the writing cliche is show, don't tell. And that has a lot of value to it. So keep that in mind. And then the last one is don't get discouraged. You might pick a topic, think it's great, write the essay, write multiple drafts of the essay, and then decide against it and have to start over. You might not get all the way to that point. You might discard it after the first draft, after you sit in front of the laptop for a full afternoon and try and write and nothing comes. That's fine. Don't get sad about it. Don't get mad about it. Just recognize that it's part of the process and to keep going. So next is how to write the essay. And I'm not going to be giving you like, this is what you should do, A, B, C, or D to write the perfect essay. We're going to just approach it in like which strategy are we going to take here? So the first thing to think about is structure. It's everything. It's a good scaffold. And the thing about scaffolding is that you only need to fill it in. It shows you where things should go. That said, you're not going to find a structure that you can just kind of drag and drop and put things in. Like the best tragedy essays, like this thing happened to me and this is why it affected me and this is why it's going to make me a great student at your school. That's a boring essay. You want to have an exciting structure, but you want to keep it in mind when you're writing so that you have a cohesive whole. It's like a coloring book, and to keep going back to the blank page metaphor, it's like if the blank page gives you anxiety, think about how much better it would be if you could see the lines. You have to put in the effort to add those lines, but filling it in after the fact is going to be a lot more pleasurable to do and not as like pulling teeth. So two of the major college essay structure choices are either a narrative or a montage. You can have an essay that has elements of both. I find a lot of the time it overlaps. Narrative is much like from an A to B. You have a status quo, and then you go, and then something changes, and then you end up on the other side of that status quo as a different person. And along the way, you can explain what happens, step A, B, C, D. in your life, and then you can expound on it and talk about it and how that changed. Now you can take detours. It doesn't have to be a straight line through, but it is what they call the hero's journey, which is either a hero goes on a journey or a stranger comes to town. So there's an event and it happens, or it's your journey on changing. And then the other structure that you can use, it's a bit trickier. It's montage. It's more of a focusing, it's more of a patchwork collective of episodes from your life, perhaps, that have a central metaphor, a central theme, thematic grouping. And what you want to look for is something that focuses all the episodes of your life or whatever it is you're writing about, and use it as a focusing lens. So everything that you want to say about yourself, perhaps one of your core values, you can find different events from your life and put it in there to illustrate why things like that are important to you. The next thing to keep in mind is that in every essay, there's both a situation and a story. This comes from the Rachel Tour book. Sometimes they line up, sometimes they don't, but it's very good to keep in mind the two. So when you're writing, you have what's actually happening in front of you. So a situation like you are in the final of your varsity soccer game, which is not a thing that really happens anymore, but with COVID. But that's what's happening. You can evoke that. You can say, I am standing on the AstroTurf and I can see a clear line and I start running and anticipating a pass, and then you're on a breakaway and you're dribbling and then you shoot and you score. That's the situation. But the story is more of like, how did you get to that point? What's propelling you? Is it, your team was undefeated and you're trying to keep that streak up and it's a matter of personal pride? Is it you had to overcome so much and this is like a symbolic moment? Did this define like your sophomore year, your junior year? Why? So situation and story, always keep those in mind. And then the next part, you're just going to write. You just are going to write. And what that means is you're going to put your pen to paper or you're going to type. I like to do it longhand because there's less thinking involved. You're not going to use the backspace button. You're not going to erase. You're not going to cross things out. You're just going to write. And that is my preferred way to get first drafts down on paper, because that's what it is, a first draft. You're not going to get stuck on any phrasing. It's almost like it's intuitive. You're just going to write and write and write. And that's the best way to approach it, because you're always going to revise it. And it can be the worst sentence you've ever written. It can be, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I know that it felt good to run down the field. Literally just that. And then you can, as long as there's some kind of kernel of an idea in there, you can take a sentence and expand it out. And then the next part is how to revise, which is what we're going to do until the end result is perfect. First, you're going to take that first draft and you are going to either put it in a drawer and walk away for like a full day, 2 days, or you're going to close the window, obviously save it, and then not look at it for a day or two. This is why we want to give ourselves plenty of time, because taking a break is key. It's going to hurt to come back to it because you're going to read things and you're going to be like, what was I thinking? But to have a clear mind and to think about what you were trying to explain and then take a second pass at it, time is key to distance yourself from that. So whether it's a day or a week, depending on how much time you have, an hour, you always want to take that little eye break from your essay. And then you're going to start on the revising process. We do the revising process first, polishing second. You're going to hear a lot of that like interchanging. But when you talk about revising, it means more of a base level. You're thinking about ideas. You're thinking about cohesion. You're thinking about whether you are you're thinking about whether the reader is going to understand what you're actually saying. So what that can, to help with that, you want to, one of my favorite strategies is to read it out loud. Does it sound like you? Does it sound like anyone? Does it sound like a person who is confident? Or to think about who is writing this essay again, one of our core questions. What's the kind of who is the person who's writing the essay? What version of you? When you read it out loud, does that version of you match up to what you have written? It just sounds different in your mouth, and it can make a lot of inconsistencies and awkwardness become very apparent very quickly. You can cut it up. You can move things around at a sentence level, at a paragraph level, at a word level. Sometimes it's even more fun to triple space your document, print it out, and then actually physically cut it up and move things around, see what works. Another cliche, kill your darlings, but it is very important because sometimes, especially if you have a history of writing or you like to write, or if you don't and you find like you have a phrase that you just have stuck in your head and you think it's so great, like a sterling turn of phrase, or you think you express something very well, but it's not working in the essay, you got to let it go. You got to find those bits that are not working and try and make it better, because more concise you are, the more of a punch you're going to pack when that person reads your essay for the first time. And then revising is rewriting. That's all that it is. You're going to rewrite and rewrite and rewrite and rewrite because you want it to be perfect, or as perfect as it's just going to be, which is more of what you're aiming for. Polishing, that is more of like a copy editing process where you're thinking of grammar, you're thinking of mechanics, you're thinking of spelling, you're thinking of vocabulary. That last one's important because a lot of times people, when they write, they use synonyms that they look up on the internet, or if you have a thesaurus, I commend you, but in a thesaurus, and they don't sound like you. If you have a Regents biology level background, but then you're like out here using very technical terms for like viruses and things like that, it might come across as insincere. You have to think about yourself, because the most important part of this is who is writing this essay. It's you, and they don't want a fake version of you. They want the best version of you. And that, so before we go on, that is kind of like the end process of writing the college essay, which is making sure that it is in good shape. And right now we're going to look at the 3 books that I use the most. And then we're going to go to the workshop part of this program. So we have these in the catalog, and they're available to be checked out if you have any interest in them. This one was my favorite, Write Your Way In, Crafting an Unforgettable College Admissions Essay by Rachel Tor. It's pretty quick, not long at all, and it has a lot of really great tips and examples. And I find that examples are helpful to a point, and then after that point, it gets to be a little bit masochistic, and you just think like, I'm never going to be able to write like this, but it is good for inspiration. This one is the second one that I use. The second most use that I had for one of these books. It's the College Essay Essentials, a step-by-step guide to writing a successful college admissions essay. This guy brands himself, Ethan Sawyer, as the college essay guide, and this is very thorough. It'll give you a lot of examples and a lot of exercises that will help you brainstorm or get to the next step in your essay process. And then we also have this, Conquering the College Admissions Essay in 10 Steps, Crafting a Winning Personal Statement. Didn't use this as much, but it is still a great resource. And that is the end of this presentation. And we will start the workshop portion of this program now. I'm going to stop recording.